The ground trembled beneath my feet. A deafening crash echoed through the thick forest. My heart raced as I stumbled forward, nearly tripping over the twisted roots of ancient trees. What I saw next stopped me cold. There, half buried in the dirt, was a stone chest, its intricate markings worn by centuries of decay. I had heard the legends, but no one ever truly believed them, until now. What I was about to uncover would change everything, and not just for me. The discovery. I had always thought of the stories as mere fantasy, tales passed down by old men who'd had too much wine. But as I knelt by the chest, my fingers brushing against the rough, cold stone, I knew this was no ordinary find. The chest was covered in layers of moss and dirt, but the strange carvings on its surface seemed almost to glow in the dim light. I didn't have a shovel, but my hands were enough. With every scrape of soil, the weight of history seemed to press down on me. My thoughts raced. Who had buried this? And why? The legends had spoken of a treasure, lost to time, hidden by those who feared its power. But no one could confirm it. They were just stories, whispers among the villagers. Finally, I exposed the chest completely. The air around me seemed to grow colder. There was a lock on it, rusted and old, but still intact. My breath caught. Could this really be it? Could the treasure from the forgotten past be real? The opening. My pulse hammered in my ears. I found a jagged rock nearby, and with trembling hands, I worked at the lock. It felt as though the whole forest was holding its breath, waiting. Then, with a sickening snap, the lock gave way. The chest creaked open. Inside, I found not gold or jewels, but something far more bizarre. There were old scrolls, wrapped in brittle leather, and a strange, glowing stone. The stone pulsed with an eerie light, and I couldn't look away. My hand reached for it without thinking. The moment I touched it, a shock ran through my body, sharp and blinding. I yanked my hand back, heart pounding. I had no idea what I had just unleashed. The secret. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the stone, its light, its power. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a treasure. It was a key to something much darker. The next day, I returned to the forest. I couldn't explain why, but I knew I had to go back. I couldn't leave the chest there. It wasn't just something to be discovered, it was something to be protected. But when I arrived, the chest was gone. I searched for hours, panic building in my chest. Who could have taken it? And why? That's when I heard the voice. A soft whisper in the wind, just loud enough to catch my attention. You should never have found it. The chase. I turned, my heart stopping. A figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, draped in a cloak as black as midnight. You found it, the figure said again, this time stepping forward. I could barely make out their face, but there was something in their eyes, a cold, calculating look. Who are you? I demanded, trying to steady my breath. The figure smiled, a grin that didn't reach their eyes. Someone who's been looking for it just as long as you. They stepped closer. And now you've made a terrible mistake. I backed away, fear gnawing at my insides. The chest. The stone. There was something more to this treasure than I could understand. And now, someone else wanted it. Someone who would stop at nothing to get it back. I turned and ran, but I could hear them following, their footsteps swift and silent in the underbrush. The betrayal. Days passed, but the figure never stopped chasing me. I began to realize, this wasn't just about a treasure. It was about power. The stone, the scrolls, they weren't meant for ordinary hands. They were meant for those who could harness their power, those who could control what was hidden in time. Then, just when I thought I was free, it happened. My closest friend, Thomas, appeared in the clearing where I had set up camp. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. I know who's after you, he said, his voice shaking. It's my family. I froze. What do you mean? My ancestors, he said, almost whispering now. They were the ones who hid it. They'd been guarding it for centuries, ensuring no one could use it. A sudden realization struck me. And you didn't tell me? He hesitated. Then, in the space of a breath, I saw it, the shift in his eyes. The subtle, dangerous glint. You don't understand, he whispered. It was always meant to be mine. The final choice. Everything crashed down around me. Thomas had known all along. He wasn't just my friend, he was part of the very family that had hidden the treasure. I had been a fool, a pawn in his game. The stone pulsed again in my pocket, as if it knew what had just happened. I couldn't let him have it. Not after everything we'd been through. I looked at him one last time. If you think you can take it from me, you're wrong. In that moment, I knew there was only one way to stop this. Only one way to end the cycle. I turned and threw the stone into the river. The rushing water swallowed it, and with it, all the power I had just uncovered. But as I walked away, I heard the whisper one last time, from deep within the forest. You may have stopped it, but it's never really over. The return. I thought I was done. I thought I had left it all behind me, the chase, the betrayal, the haunting whispers. But life has a way of reminding you of what you can't escape. Weeks passed. I tried to put the events behind me, tried to move on. But then the dreams started. Every night, the same vision. The stone. The glowing light. The river, swirling, as though it were trying to tell me something. I woke up every morning, drenched in sweat, my heart racing, as if I were still running, still fighting. And then, one evening, I received a letter. It was from Thomas. I know you think it's over. But you're wrong. You've only delayed the inevitable. We'll meet again. The stone will find its way back. I tore the letter into pieces. But the words haunted me. It was as if I had triggered something ancient, something that could never be stopped. No matter how hard I tried, it wasn't over. And I wasn't going to be left in peace. The pursuit. I couldn't ignore the growing dread. Everywhere I went, I felt the eyes on me, hidden, watching. People seemed to know more about me than they should. Strangers whispered my name in the street. I thought I was losing my mind. And then I saw him again. It was the figure in the black cloak, the one who had chased me in the forest. He stood across the street, just outside the cafe I was sitting in. His eyes locked onto mine, cold and empty. I jumped up, heart pounding in my chest, but before I could make a move, he was gone. Vanished like smoke. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. A voice I didn't recognize. It's not just about the stone. It's about control. It's about what your bloodline was meant for. The voice was deep, calculating. My stomach churned. They were getting closer. The revelation. The days blurred into one. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me was crumbling. I began to question everything. Thomas. The stone. The power hidden in time. It wasn't about treasure or riches. It was about something far more dangerous. I dug deeper into my family's past, into the history of the chest, the stone, the scrolls. What I uncovered made my blood run cold. My ancestors were not just guardians, they were the ones who had sealed away the power, protecting the world from its reach. But they had failed. And now, it was up to me to finish what they had started. But I wasn't prepared for what I would find. The stone was part of something much bigger, a force that could change the very course of history. And Thomas? He wasn't trying to get the stone back. He was trying to use it to unlock what had been hidden for centuries. The truth hit me like a wave. The power I had unleashed was never meant to be kept in one place, it was meant to move, to spread. Part 10, The Final Confrontation. I didn't know where to turn anymore. My every move felt tracked. My every decision, questioned. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. I found Thomas one last time, standing at the edge of the river where the stone had disappeared. He was waiting for me, as if he knew I would come. It's too late, he said, his voice low. You can't stop what's already begun. I stepped forward, every instinct telling me to run, but I knew it was time to face the truth. I'm not running anymore, I said. It ends here. The stone, glowing in his hand, cast an eerie light. I knew that if it touched the wrong person, it would all be over. The struggle was brief, sharp, and filled with tension. But in the end, I made the choice. I knocked the stone from his hands, sending it into the water once more. But this time, something was different. The stone didn't sink. It floated, spinning on the surface, as if it were waiting for the next move. And I knew, this wasn't over. The power would find its way again. It always did. The unseen future. I stood there, staring at the stone, its eerie glow reflecting off the water, pulsing as if it were alive. My heart raced, not with fear, but with something far worse, realization. It wasn't the stone that had held the power all along. It was me. The voice that had whispered in the dark had said it all. It's not just about the stone. It's about what your bloodline was meant for. The weight of those words crashed down on me, finally making sense. For generations, my family had been the keepers, but not of the treasure, not of the stone. We had been the keepers of the truth about the power that ran through our veins. The stone, the scrolls, the chest, they were merely tools, but the true power lay in the knowledge we held. The knowledge that we were connected to something ancient, something older than time itself. Something that had been buried long before we were born. I looked down at the river again. The stone floated, waiting for someone who truly understood. And for the first time in my life, I realized, it wasn't about stopping it. It wasn't about hiding it. The power had always been ours to wield. It was about understanding it, controlling it. Only then could we truly decide if it was a gift, or a curse. I took a step forward, my breath steady, my hands no longer trembling. The past had led me here, but it was up to me to decide where to go next. As I reached out, the stone didn't resist. It welcomed me, like a long-lost friend. Its pulse slowed, then quieted, until it was nothing but a solid weight in my palm. I knew then, this was the moment of choice. Not for me, but for the future. The moment was not mine alone to claim. It was for everyone who would come after me, for the generations who would follow. The power I had unleashed had never been meant to end, it had been meant to evolve, to grow, to change the course of history. I walked away from the river that day, but I left something behind. The stone, the secret, the burden of knowledge, it would always be with me, in the quiet corners of my mind. And I knew, someday, someone else would come. They would find it again, just as I had, and the cycle would continue. But when that day came, they would understand what I had learned. The power is not to be feared. It is to be embraced. And for the first time, I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders. Because now, I understood. The treasure had never been lost. It had simply been waiting for the right moment. And the moment was now.